welcome to the April 26th, 2023 City Council work session. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. And thank you again for joining us. And with that, I call this work session to order, and we are going to go immediately into executive session. The Eugene City Council will now meet in executive session held pursuant to ORS 192.6602I to review and evaluate employment-related performance. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience, are asked to leave the meeting. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to record or report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the meeting. So counselors, we might have Greg. Do we have Greg online? No. So I guess this is an irrelevant comment. You don't need to log out because you're all in the room. Thank you all for being here. When the executive session ends, as a reminder, representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to record or report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. And with that,
city reporters trying to get your attention.
yes. Oh, sorry. into the work session, and we will now move on to the public conversation of the municipal court judge evaluation, and I'll turn that over to Becky.
Great. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is an opportunity for Council to discuss the compensation options provided to Council for the municipal court judge evaluation process, as well as provide any other public feedback. As a Council employee, Judge Kill has a current employment contract that allows for discretionary salary adjustments for the years he is not formally evaluated by Council. Council has the sole authority to determine compensation for the presiding municipal court judge and has a wide variety of options available to them that were outlined in the packet. To inform Council's discussion and decision, Attachment A includes information related to the current salary for the presiding judge, as well as market data and the city's 12 non-represented pay grades. With that, I will turn it over to the Mayor and Council.
All right, I will start the queue again, and I see Alan and Randy ready to go. And Mike. All right, carry on.
Thank you, Mayor. Judge Gill, I think you're doing a really good job. I think some of the folks that did in their 360 evaluation, I think they said it great. Effective management and problem solving of issues, well-respected judge, thoughtful deliberator, makes considered well-reasoned decisions, consensus builder, make sure all parties are heard, continued to maintain a professional and functional court during COVID, continued to build the community program, diplomat, consummate professional. I think they said it well. I couldn't say it any better. I just want to add my voice to that and the job that you're doing as the judge. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo what Counselor Zelenka said and just really hit hard on your level of experience. I mean, it shines and shows through this evaluation very well. Obviously, people that work with you and around you see the same things. I also appreciate how you're constantly coming up with innovations, and it doesn't matter what the challenge that you face and the court system faces, you seem to find ways to navigate through that. And that innovation is very much appreciated. A question for you: how is our relationship with Lane County Jail?
I believe our relationship with Lane County Jail is really good, even though it's tough times and there are a lot of tough conversations that happen, and there's push forward and there's push back. The relationship is good. Our new court administrator, Sarah Caligari, does a great job of communicating with the jail and making sure that everybody's on the same page. I work with jail staff, captain, lieutenants. Our lines of communication are open. And I think everybody involved wants the right thing to happen. It's just dealing with the lack of resources. And we don't let that frustrate the actual relationship. We keep those silos from building.
I appreciate that very much. In my last, I've toured the jail relatively recently to get reacquainted with it. One of the things that I noticed and heard from jail staff is frequently detainees coming out of Muni Court here in Eugene are some of the most difficult to manage because of mental health issues and substance misuse and abuse issues. Would you concur with that?
I believe those persons who are arrested for the activities that they're being arrested for are much more likely to be charged with a Eugene municipal charge as opposed to something that would go through circuit court, even though circuit court has the C, B, and A level misdemeanors that mirror what our city code has. Most of the time, those persons are going to be charged with Eugene offenses and therefore characterized as Eugene inmates. But I think it's that population and those groups that are suffering from those things and committing those kinds of crimes that are going to be the hardest to deal with.
I think that's an important distinction and a better way to frame that. So thank you for doing that. And also, I do appreciate your use of restorative justice and some of these alternatives to incarceration, because, one, in some instances, it is a better way to take corrective action, but also with limited capacity in our jail. And I think it's really important that we save that for the people that need it most, and when we need to get people off the street for the safety of our community. So thank you for that. And then I have one more point. Yeah, it slipped my mind. But anyway, I really appreciate the job you do. And I've been very impressed with how you've approached what I think is one of the most difficult jobs in the city.
Councilor Groves, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and then Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say, first of all, I agree with both my colleagues about the fantastic job you do. I wouldn't and couldn't do it because it's really, really hard and you do it exceptionally well. So thank you, sir. And the community as a whole appreciate the work you do and the whole court. I had a hypothetical or two for you. I don't want to get too far considering time and what we have to deal with, but I want to throw this out there. The idea of some violations that are repeated over and over and over and over and over again, and that you see regularly. I want to know how you think about justice and recidivism and the creativity needed to try and get over that. Particularly, you know, if I was cited to come into court for parking violations every single week for months on end, at some point you would do something different, right? So with regard to recidivism around public camping, I want to know how you think about that as a repeated ongoing offense, and how do you get creative with addressing that in how you're adjudicating a case in particular?
Well, that's a very good question. And I know it's going to be your chagrin, but it's going to be totally dependent on the defendant. Repeated offenses are really hard to work with. Let's just say in felony land, at a certain point, repeated offenses are going to end up with Department of Corrections, right? Or really long jail stays. And that's a different world than what we have at the municipal level. It just is. And so knowing that our sentences are short and that our capacity to hold somebody for longer sentences is limited, then the court absolutely has to employ these alternative ways of dealing with the repeat offenders, right? It doesn't mean that you're any less stern. It doesn't mean that you're any less engaged with the number of crimes that someone has committed. But in terms of the solution to try to reduce the recidivism and actually stop the cycle becomes a much bigger question. So someone might be cited into the community court program, maybe it's for the 13th time. And everybody stops at a staffing and says, maybe this isn't going to work this time. Or maybe this person's failed to appear 10 times and it's not going to resolve through the community court. And maybe this person just simply needs to be held, right? Or maybe this person is going to be more appropriate for a different docket. Maybe the mental health court program, because it's longer, it's much more involved. The wraparound services are a lot more potent and the accountability level can be at a different caliber than, let's say, the community court. So those are the kind of creative solutions to any one particular case that we might have or one particular defendant. For the frequent flyers that, due to whatever reason, aren't going to engage with any of those programs or stop the cycle themselves, those are going to be the hardest cases, and those are going to be the folks that will be identified by EPD right away. Those are going to be the folks that all court staff and attorneys are going to identify right away. Those are going to be the people that jail staff, both Springfield and Lane County, are going to identify right away as really hard cases. And everybody understands the limitations on resources and what you can actually do in any one of those cases. And so if it gets to the point where someone needs to be held in custody because they just simply cannot be back on the street for X amount of days or however long, then that's what's going to have to happen, right? And if you can somehow perform a good warm handoff at the end of that sentence to see if then that person re-engages with providers or, you know, gets taken out of the cycle, fantastic. That's what everybody wants, right? Because defense attorneys don't want to have that person back as a client. Prosecutors want that person out of there. They don't want to have this person on their desk anymore. And honestly, the court doesn't want that person in the courthouse anymore because you see them all the time. Usually they're not easy to handle, so on and so forth.
What are any effective tools off the top of your head for those who simply refuse to comply? Other than long-term incarceration, what would you do?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not sure I have a really good answer for you off the top of my head, just because, you know, you're asking me about a tool that's not in the toolbox and right now. And it doesn't mean that we can't fashion one or find one. But you basically hit on the crux of the big problem that makes the city prosecutor's office bang their heads against the wall.
Right. Last thing, Mayor, sorry. On Monday night, we had a meeting around the adjustments to our code for House Bill 3115 and including some additional provisions in there that kind of alter how that language works. One of them, and I'm sure Catherine can correct me and talk about this intelligently as opposed to me describing it, but kind of delineates the difference between a violation and a willful violation. Okay, so I want to know how I'm sure that you've been involved with Chief Skinner and with others about that differentiation. How do you plan to address willful violations differently than regular violations of a particular overnight camping or whatever?
That's a good question. And I think I gave a short answer to that. The way to address the willful violation, which rises to the level of a crime and out of that violation level, right, punitive only as a fine, is going to be dictated by council, and what the maximum penalties can be, both fine-wise and time in custody. And then the level of the offense is going to be commensurate with the amount of jail time if someone were to stay in custody because of that, right? With getting and not going into the nuances of those carve-outs from the House bill for what council would be considering and what would be allowed and what would not be allowed, and what might actually come in front of the court about what's constitutional, not constitutional, statutory, otherwise. That's the short answer.
Okay, so prescribed only to what the ordinance gives you, essentially?
Well, you're asking about how the court would address the willful violation.
Yes.
And it's being addressed as a crime.
Okay. Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you, Councilor Clark.
Thank you. Matt?
Thanks, Mayor. I had similar questions along the willful violation piece, because on Monday night, if your ears were burning, this council talked a lot about looking forward to connect with you today and get more clarity around the willful violation piece. But that will go to it's my understanding that that will go to a public hearing on May 15th. So it might be a little premature to.
Yes, sir. And I'm sorry to interject, but I think it'd probably be a little bit premature for me to comment on,
right,
on, you know, the mental state required for a particular crime, what that crime would look like, and then what the consequences of that crime would be.
But is it true that the levers, our levers as a municipal body, are fines and jail time, whereas you're empowered more in the public service, or in addition to that, community service, community court, et cetera?
Generally, yes. I don't know if council is limited to just fines and jail. There might be some other consequences or punishments that may be allowed, but they're definitely statutorily directed on what you can and can't do.
And if I can add to that, and I don't mean to interject, we talked a lot, and Judge Gill is at a disadvantage. I haven't spoken to him after your Monday meeting, and we'll certainly do that and connect. But for example, and to add on to what Judge Gill just said, your 4.990, which is your penalties provisions for the Chapter 4 offenses, even includes in the introduction, in addition to other penalties, and I believe it even calls out community service. Like, so there it's not silent. Your current policy that you've adopted around penalties aren't silent to other things besides just jail and fines.
Okay. Thank you. In the interest of time, I'm just going to underscore my enthusiasm for your work, which is exemplary, and indicate as your review has indicated that you are highly competent, compassionate, and experienced. We are fortunate to have a municipal court judge who has such a clear eye for fairness and justice. Thank you, Judge Gill.
Thank you, Counselor, very much.
Emily?
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Gill. As everyone else has said, we're really lucky. You have a tough job, especially in the way the world is right now. And I admire the way that you've been so adaptive. The opportunities and challenges from the pandemic and evolving society have given you a lot to work with. I've always been really happy about community courts, so I'm thrilled that that's evolving and being more effective, that we have our room for it. And that you have been able to look at all these different moving parts and restructure so that we have more efficiency and effectiveness. Your recommendations are really great. And so be proud of that. I take from this that you are adaptive, responsive, clear, and caring. And that's the sort of person I want working for me. So I wish we had no crime and we wouldn't need you. You could relax on a beach somewhere. But we do, and we need the court. And I think that we are lucky to have you. So thank you for your work and your continued looking out for how things are changing and being responsive to go with that change to someplace more effective and positive. So thank you.
Councilor Semple, thank you very much for saying that. I want to take the opportunity quickly, though, to make sure that everybody understands that it's not just me. The court staff, the administration there, and all the court partners play a much bigger role than just me in making sure that these services are delivered on a daily basis. It's really hard. It's really hard to make sure you have to get it right every single time, or else somebody's liberty could be at stake. You have to get it right every single time, or somebody's out some money, right? Or they're in front of a judge when they shouldn't be, right? It's really hard to give quality service to folks who are told they have to be in court. And I said this in my evaluation, and I really want to underscore that. And if you didn't read that part of the evaluation, please go back and do that. The staff and the administration at the municipal courthouse are amazing. They do hard jobs every single day, and it lets me do my hard job on the bench and in chambers and in other places, so I can really focus on that instead of having to go put out fires every other place. My door's always open. Staff knows that. We have a really good working relationship to solve problems as they come up, but I cannot emphasize enough how great the court administration is and the court staff that work there. They are wonderful people, and the city is very lucky to have each and every one of those folks there.
And that exactly puts the exclamation point on why you're so good, because none of us could do this without the help of individual departments and staff, and that you recognize that and encourage your staff to be so great is wonderful. And yep, it takes all of us, but they wouldn't be working for us if you didn't hire them and encourage them to do their best. So thank you to everybody, but you still get the glory.
Right, on behalf of everybody, thank you very much.
Hey, any other questions, comments for other counselors? Okay, all right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the council president.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple quick things and a request. One is the thing I forgot to mention was consequence of error that you deal with. I think that also uniquely positions you as we talk about the next piece, which is compensation. Two, I want to compliment Becky DeWitt for doing an excellent job of putting this packet together. It was easy to follow, and it gave us a lot of information. And three, my request is I would like to see all three of our employees run through pay placement, just so we have kind of an objective look at when we're trying to determine appropriate compensation levels. I think it would be helpful having gone through a couple of these here lately. And with that, I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, please do.
I move to authorize the council president to execute an amendment to Judge Greg Gill's employment contract that one, establishes a presiding judge salary range of $131,331.20 to $177,278.40, with the range adjusting consistent with COLA adjustments for non-represented staff. And two, awards Judge Gill a merit increase of $8,112, which is approximately a 5.3% pay increase, placing him at grade 12, step 7 of the established salary range.
Second.
You want to speak to that? Yes.
Yeah, I think this is probably appropriate. Who else is in grade 12 for comparison purposes in the city staff?
Division managers that are responsible for a large range of responsibilities. A couple of examples of that would be the ISD director, I believe the Employee Resource Center director, as well as maintenance director within the city. So.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else with questions or comments around that? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is unanimous. So thank you very much. And I will just close by thanking council for their consideration and really deep thanks to you and your entire team in the municipal court for the work that you do. We are grateful to you. And this report was really very informative. I'd love to dive into the details with you at another time and not take a public meeting time, but I'm find it very compelling and very reassuring how you're managing that court and the great team that you've built. So thank you very much.
Mayor, thank you very much. And please, 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 come visit, come chat. Just have the hard conversations. That's what we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Need to get back down into the again. And go, okay, we're again. I haven't been there since they put the courtroom in.
I was there maybe 2 months ago. Hi.
I can jump in.
Okay, are you ready to jump in? So we'll
While
just turn
she
it over to
does
you,
this.
Sarah, to introduce this next topic.
Yeah, thank you. There's actually a lot of words in the topic, so I think what I'm going to do is focus on introducing Michelle Miranda, who's our wastewater division manager. As many of you have heard me say in multiple meetings, in some ways, I think our wastewater division is our most critical service. It's also the one that a lot of people don't even know about, and that's exactly kind of how we want it, because it means everything's working really well. And so we were really lucky to get Michelle. She's been working in wastewater and public works for a long time. And I was really excited. She got promoted into this role last year. I think it was last year. Time does kind of go together. So I'll turn it over to you for the presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. My computer's going a little slow here, so.
Just want me to keep talking about you?
Sure. It's hard for me to talk and type at the same time too. So, okay, I got the login. Pull up my presentation here. Here we go. Okay. So good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Michelle Miranda, and the Wastewater Division Director. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about our regional wastewater utility and also the industrial pretreatment program. And I'd like to first begin by acknowledging the project team that I have here with me today. So I have Contrail Smith. He's our regulatory services supervisor. I have Emily Jerome, our city attorney and legal counsel for the project, and also Tanya Erin McCarroll. She's our technical services manager. And like with any kind of project like this, I could not have gotten here without the team effort. So I'd just like to thank them. So we'll start with just a little bit of history. The Clean Water Act was passed in 1972 in response to concerns about pollution in our nation's waterway. And with that came federal funding and local funding to build wastewater infrastructure. So our local leaders at that time decided to invest in the community regionally, recognizing the importance of the Willamette River and its tributaries. So the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission, or MWMC, was formed in 1977. And this is a partnership between the city of Eugene, the city of Springfield, and Lane County. So our first pretreatment program was approved by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality in 1983. Our treatment plant came online in 1984. We began operating our biosolids facility in 1989, and we've had 4 wastewater discharge permits since that time, with the most recent issued in November of 2022. And that's the reason I'm here to talk to you today, because the compliance with that new permit requires us to make a few updates to city code. So the industrial pretreatment program is required by federal and state rules with the purpose of protecting public health and the environment, the Willamette River, our biosolids, people who work in and around the city sewer, and public investment in infrastructure. And here's a photo of that infrastructure. That's our regional wastewater utility. It's located in Eugene. We are a, 24, 365-day operations. So we're always on. We're an award-winning facility also, and we clean about 11 billion gallons of wastewater each year. And we have a service population of about 250,000 people. And if anyone would like to visit our facility or take a tour, I'm always happy to provide that. So just follow up with me, and I'd love to give a tour. So our part of the wastewater treatment process is solids generation, and the solid material that we get are turned into a nutrient-rich soil amendment, and they're treated at a facility that's about 6 miles north of our treatment plant. And then that fertilizer is then applied to our poplar trees and also local grass seed farms. So if anybody's interested in coming to see our biosolids facility, I would be very happy to give you a tour of that too. The industrial pretreatment program the purpose of that program is to protect public health, the environment, the Willamette River, the public investments that I just showed you, and our Eugene team and our Springfield team work very closely together to implement that program. And we operate under rules that are established, they're laid out in the Clean Water Act, and they're established through the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Oregon Department of Environmental Quality then approves these rules, and they issue National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits, the NPDES permits. And in those permits, they include requirements for local pretreatment programs, which the state of Oregon also approves those programs. So the program requirements for the pretreatment program, they're stated in the Schedule E of our permit, and they're also in the MWMC sewer ordinance, and ultimately they land in Eugene City Code Chapter 6. And so what has changed with these updates? Well, the short story is not much, even though your packet might say differently. Most of the changes are a reorganization of the section language and alignment with the federal and state model pretreatment ordinances. And so that's really the main focus of the change. There is a couple new things in it. Most of them are around adding flexibility for businesses, like the electronic reporting rule. Now we'll be able to accept electronic signatures from required reports from businesses and industries. And also there's a bit more flexibility for folks that don't discharge a high volume, but are still follow under some categorical definitions. So like people who discharge very small amounts to our system. And the process and next steps. So these changes were approved by resolution by our commission on April 14th. I'm here in front of you today to answer any questions that you might have or have discussion. I'll be back here in May for a public hearing and then potential action. So with that, open it up for any discussion or comments.
Well, that was
Signups.
Tour signups, absolutely.
I'm so impressed with how you worked your way through that presentation so efficiently and so quickly. That was pretty amazing. And I very much appreciated the history that you just provided of what's brought us to this place. So thank you very much. Are there counselors with questions or comments? Randy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we all understand it's a bad day when the system backs up. So thank you for your work and keeping things moving. How close are we to capacity with the current wastewater plant?
We are built to handle 277 million gallons per day of water. Our average, the average we receive is around 30 million gallons per day.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, a long way to go.
So we have a lot of headroom then.
yes.
Great.
What was the peak?
You know, the peak flow for this year, we've hovered right around 100 MGD. So sometimes when we get a lot of rain, that'll bump up. And that's the reason that we actually have the design for this 277 is to incorporate wet weather events.
Super. Thank you. I really don't have any questions beyond that. I've been very impressed with the whole plant and the way it's operated for many years now. I know former city manager Mike Gleason, that was the first place he would take visiting dignitaries for tours, was out to the wastewater treatment plant. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, and then Matt.
Yeah, thanks for taking care of all this stuff. The fact that we don't hear about you and your and the plant is actually a very good thing, especially some of the things that have happened on the coast and well, north a little ways. Question I have is about the poplar farm, and it's and the reason we have that poplar farm is related to what are all the alternatives to do that you can do with the effluent of the plant or the wastewater that comes out of the plant, and maybe you could run through that, because my recollection is the poplar plant was the most cost effective of all the other options, and it also creates either wood and has all these other things. Even though it may have a cost, it's not how much does this cost, it's how much would it cost if we didn't do that, right?
Yes, yeah. So we have about 400 acres of poplar trees, which we harvest on a 12-year cycle. We land apply our biosolids to them, and poplars were chosen because that area is it's a very wet area. So they'll actually grow. Like a lot of trees wouldn't necessarily grow in that area. And then also poplars are really good at uptaking nutrients. So it's that phytoremediation. And that's the main reason we've done a lot of work trying to, find a market for that. And currently our latest harvest, if you go to Bring Recycling, you'll see our wood there. So they have live edge, and they also have 2x4s there. So.
And Springfield, the meeting room has the roof panels are all made
yes.
out of the poplar from the
Yeah, we made ceiling panels that adorn the Springfield City Hall and
the
meeting room. Yes.
The second question I had was about the biogas facility. How's that going? And it was sometimes controversial, but and it took a while to get there, but it's up and operating and doing well, and we're selling gas for transportation and completing that cycle.
Yes, and the other benefit to that, so not only is the methane getting beneficially reused, we're flaring a lot less. So you might have, if you ever drive by our facility, you might see the kind of the large flame, and that's methane's produced, but we burn it to where it's not methane, but it's only CO2. So we're capturing all that, and that's not happening anymore. So it's been a really great project. We've the city of Eugene, it was handed over to us officially at the end of 2022. So we've got a year of operation of it under our belt, but then just a few months here managing it ourselves. But it's been a very, very beneficial addition to our facility.
Yeah, it's not only the greenhouse gas reductions and the higher beneficial use of the methane for transportation fuels, but it also makes money.
It does. It does. We've made about $1.8 million so far.
In less than a year.
Yes. Yeah.
That's that's net.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's by selling off the environmental attributes. And that it's a volatile market, because those prices change. But to date, that's what we've
and the credits. That's pretty impressive though, be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. You've taught me a new term, phytoremediation. I like it. Thank you. Thanks very much. All right, Matt.
Cite 2 examples.
Yeah, that would be an awesome Scrabble. What accolades and kudos and awards have you received? You've mentioned them, but I'm not familiar, and I long to get a tour.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd be happy to give you a tour. So we are 16 years NACWA Platinum award winner. So that means we've had 16 consecutive years with no permit violations. And I went and looked when I got this position. So I've been in this position since May. I went back and looked, and the reason we had that skip of year was we forgot to apply. So I think it's closer to 25 plus years of a facility with no permit violations. So that's one of our really important words. But we've also been recognized nationally for our RNG project. So we've got a sustainability award from NACWA, and we've also this past year received for the state of Oregon Operator of the Year. So one of our employees, Spencer Goodrow, received that award. So along with that, we've had safety awards, and there's really a long list that I can't actually mention. I mean, I can't recall right sitting here, but I would be happy to put a list together or to follow up if you're interested in that information.
Thank you. And if I,
Lay on the wall.
yeah,
There's a lot.
Yeah.
on the wall of our new city hall.
One whole wall.
Right.
For wastewater.
I have an interest in the gray water collection, and I've been reading about gray water collection in the Bay Area and the partnership with labor. What opportunities exist in regards to gray water collection?
So gray water, I'm thinking maybe recycled water we've been recycling the water that we receive to the plant. So we recycle about 2 million gallons a day of our water that we receive. And we use part of that in just the processes, so we use it in processes that keep our facility running. But we also recycle water to a quality where we're able to apply it to our poplar trees at certain times of the year when they need to. And we are MWMC is in the midst of planning, we're in the planning stages of a pilot project with recycled water where we could partner potentially with other entities, Delta Sand and Gravel, which is fairly close to us. So we would provide them with some water for their wheel wash and their processes. Also, the City of Eugene street tree, being able to water street trees. And so, but right now that's just in the design phase. So we're still working through some concepts, but yes, we recognize the benefits of recycling water and repurposing water where we can. And we've done that for years. So we've had our recycled water program that started really close to when the biosolids management facility came online. So long history of recycled water.
So it sounds like there's a wish list or a conceptual list. Are there any other municipalities that you're looking to or that we should be looking to, best practices to adopt?
Yeah, we do. We belong to a professional organization known as the Association of Clean Water Agencies, and it has national branches, but it also has an Oregon. And so we are, and it's mainly the MWMC or the Springfield staff, but are heavily involved in those recycle water committees and groups. And so even now, there's some legislation that's designed to help promote or make the rules a bit easier. I think our biggest challenge has been, so the state adopts the rules that govern being able to the ins and outs or the details around recycled water programs. So there's a real, people recognize that we're probably going to need more recycled water in the future if things continue where they are with the water scarcity and droughts and stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other counselors in the queue? Jennifer?
Yeah, so I think everyone already touched on a lot of our important programs, and I just want to say what an excellent job Michelle is doing and all the staff. I think it's an excellent job, an example of how our local governments are coming together to do this great thing. Covering different parts of the job. You shouldn't really go over, but Springfield does kind of the admin and building side, and Eugene does more of the maintenance and keeping stuff going side. And yet we all come together and we make it work. And I'm just every month I'm always impressed, and I don't always understand the big words. They're very nice and try to explain it to us. But they do an excellent job. And and my brain just died. I was gonna, oh my goodness.
Lost it. Maybe.
I totally lost it. I will remember it as soon as the meeting is over. But yes, I do encourage everyone to come out and get a look. It's an aerial view is great, but on the ground is very different, and it's well worth the time to go out. This isn't it, but they are always telling us about awards they win. It is so often that it has almost become like, oh, okay, that's another one. There's probably a pile somewhere. Like, so I'm glad you all appreciate it a little more because the commission has gotten so used to it though.
That's great. That's a great place to be
Yes.
very relaxed about new awards because they happen so often. Any other questions or comments? So really, I just want to thank you again. It's such interesting work and it is so inspiring. We've, in my participation in the Environmental Protection Agency, a local advisory council, we've talked about the Poplar Farm and talked about the RNG work. And so it's been written up again in another setting, not an award-winning setting, but a setting in which other communities have a chance to read about it. So very, very much appreciate your leadership and your work and the whole team. And I think if there are no other questions, we are adjourned. Thank you all.